excited to have my guest joining me, Tameka Peoples. Tameka, thank you so much for being a part of today's conversation.
Of course, Nancy. Thank you for having me.
So before we get into a conversation, I would love for you to be able to share with everybody here a little something about yourself.
A little something about Tameka. Well, one, I'm a bit of a football fanatic. The Eagles are my favorite team, but sport, I believe, really helped me shape what teamwork is and how to get through life. It was kind of my foundational. Not a person who's born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Of course, we all work very hard to get to where we're at, but being able to work in a team and find balance within that team really taught me a lot about life, taught me a lot about, work ethic and building teams to do great things.
That's amazing. So Eagles, eh?
Yes. I'm
Have
from
they
the
made
West.
it? How far have they made it the last couple of times?
Well, listen, being an Eagles fan does not prepare you for championships. Let's put it this way. One of my altars to that was I've been for many years a Chicago Bulls fan. I played basketball when I was growing up, and the likes of Jordan and Pat Summitt and watching the Tennessee Vols do the things they did within greatness. And it just, East Coast and Eastern teams just really always drew me. So I don't know how many championships the Eagles have. We have a lot of Eastern Conference.
Well, that's pretty good.
That's pretty, yeah, one dance win and then several, NFC championship wins. What are you gonna do, right?
You
As
know,
Eagles fans, we are diehard green, but we know sometimes we don't always get that win.
good for you. Good for you. So it's interesting you talk about sport being a big part of your life in terms of building that capacity for teamwork or appreciation for teamwork and recognizing the value that that adds. And I feel that sounds like that's something that's translated into other areas. Like it's something that's evolved into what you do currently as well, right?
It's true. It just really helped me. In what I do right now, right, I work within my nonprofit, and we work across many different programs. We work through and with and support other organizations, and then we have to always bring together, right? A nonprofit is really working for the benefit or for the good of the public. So we always have to bring together these unique group of people and organizations and missions and try to find the balance in what that good is going to be as a collective for the public. So that has, again, the team piece of what is just a part of my core from sport to military. I did time in the military has really helped me shape how we service our communities.
Well, I would love for you to share a little bit more about this nonprofit work that you're doing, and we can get into some of the details of it in a little bit, but can you give an idea for what's that work involve?
Oh, yes. Thank you for asking. So I'm a founder of an organization called People's Foundation. Very long name, so I'm going to say it, but of course it's abbreviated. People's Foundation for supporting community, military, and veteran services.
Mm.
And so, it's really started was the impetus of really trying to serve veterans in our community who I believe were, like myself, were dealing with either trauma or depression or just trying to get through life and the struggles that it comes after you transition. And so, that expanded within several other programs for us. We work in our community with teacher organizations to bring in guest speakers and do coding and tech days for young girls and boys, right? And then we do career days for young adults in our community who really just want to have a better insight into the careers and the possibilities of the future. And one of our most recent programs, another outreach program, but really slightly different for us, is agricultural outreach that we're doing with the USDA and the University of Purdue and several other organizations, grassroots farming organizations, to really expose new and beginning farmers to the tools and resources that USDA has for them in order to get started in farming. And that includes current farmers who just need to tap into new resources for the USDA. So that's been some amazing work. And, across all those platforms, it's fundamentally about the service to our community.
What about yourself makes you identify as an introvert? Like, what are those things, quirks or whatever they might be that you're like, yeah, that is me. Those are what make me an introvert.
I certainly like just these solitudinal moments when I'm in a crowded or a big space with a lot of people. I seem to kind of just shell into myself, just kind of be the quiet Tameka that I just at my core am. I'm very I'm very studious, so I find myself just kind of watching the room, trying to fill out a personality that I might feel comfortable speaking with, and which is kind of crazy. You would think, wow, you're doing all these things, but then you're just this a bit of a wallflower when it comes to that social space. And it's not that I don't really enjoy the people and the connection and all of that. It's just my personality is very kind of closed off until I really get to
Right.
know someone, and that relationship starts to build, and then I certainly open up. So I find that I'm just naturally kind of shy and reserved and kind of would like to keep to myself for the most part, but
So
put myself out there.
this whole shutdown period, how has that made you feel in that department?
Oh no, that's a good question. It's made me feel okay, right? Most of us are, especially someone like myself who really considers myself an introvert. I'm very used to kind of moving in this solitude space and still be able to get things done. And if I see great friends or people like yourself, that's it. We can connect virtually. That's awesome. But I can still just kind of It actually gives me a little bit of peace and balance,
Hmm.
because I know that sometimes as an introvert, you feel as if, oh man, am I really missing out? Right? Am I missing these moments where I could, there's connections and people and opportunities for growth. I feel like now it's being brought to me in a way that I can kind of filter and um, immerse in differently and not feel that reserve or that those moments where I'm just, you know, shy and observing and just kind of looking at the world like when and how do I connect.
Well, that's actually really well said around this idea of missing out. I can relate to that. Sometimes you see, I mean, I'm going to exaggerate here. You see someone who's making all these connections and talking to tons of people and all this energy, and there's this sense of like, oh man, am I missing something? Is there something that that person has or they're able to do that I'm missing? And I feel sometimes in the quest of that, we play into something that is so not what feeds the energy reserve that we have as individuals. And it's really important for us to recognize what gives energy. And I loved what you said around the idea of like, it's not that I'm not social, I'm just social in a different way. And, we've, and, and the challenge is that we've painted social in a certain way that
Absolutely.
if someone who's not, why don't you want to go out all the time? Why don't you? You're like, I actually just, it drains me. So you mentioned this word empath, and I've heard a couple other people use that word before. How would you define that?
I would define it as being able to feel and sense other people's energies and emotions in a way that um, you can you can really pick up on what they may or may not be going through, and it draws you to them in a way that you almost have to protect your energy balance. If there's certainly, if there's things that's even sometimes one might say negative about that person, it kind of can get to you, right? And so that's
Right.
how I would describe it, as being able to really feel and sense and pick up on that. And you can only balance having so much of that come from you, and those type of connective emotions so often, right? And so
Right.
you just really need to, for myself, I find that I need to guard that a bit more, because energy is a real thing,
Yes.
and so I need to do those things that feed me and that I can really find that right balance with the right people.
do you find that when you talk about that energy that you can pick up from other people, do you find that you tend to pick up the positive energy and the negative energy to the same degree, or do you find that you tend to sense one more so than the other?
I do sense the positive one more so than the other. However, I think there's a bit of both in everyone, right? So I feel the positive, but I can also feel that other stuff that may or may not be going on with that person. So
Right.
yeah.
It's interesting you talk about the feel, because that's something I can really resonate with myself, the idea of picking up on a feeling in a
Mhm.
room. And it's something that I feel I probably was unconscious to it or fought it a little bit in my personal life. I feel I tried to put a lot of logic around it. This idea of, you know, I can sense something is here, but I was never able to verbalize it. You can't, not everything can be put into words. And I felt that I needed to be able to verbalize it, to be able to put it into words for it to make any sense. But this year, I've been doing a little bit, to your point, doing some work with myself, for myself, and I'm
Mhm.
starting to recognize, to your point, that I actually am very much of someone who picks up on feelings. As much as I was trying to downplay that, that's what I do. And I recognize that I too, if I go into a room, can be like, something's off,
Mhm.
something's not right in here, or you know, just kind of that idea of you can cut the tension.
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
is something. That is actually
Yes.
something. The feeling of tension. So I think it's a really great thing to be able to be attuned to that, to be attuned to what am I sensing, and the fact that I can sense these things. I'm aware that I'm able to sense these things, and what can I
Mhm.
do with that? It sounds to me that when I think about the work that you're doing, a lot of that seems to feed into, like, the way you are seems to feed into helping you in this bigger work that you're doing with your organization as well.
That is very true. I remember when I sat down with our team and outside of, the work we were doing with our veterans, which was really centered around um, some adaptive and therapeutic golf events and just really simple things that we can put on with our local community leads and our golf pro. I had a conversation with several teachers who were in my circle, right? I think most of us know teachers, nurses, we know great people. And they talked to me a lot about some of the things that they were seeing with with young adults in our community that were, you know, despair, lack of sense of hope, no options with respect to what are the different careers that I can do, no technology in the classroom. And I really fundamentally I felt that because at the time my nephew was kind of going to school in the community and I was kind of doing some events with him, and it seems like all of the young adults that I was around, there was this feeling I got from them. This feeling of hopelessness, despair, just like, okay, whatever, what am I going to do? There's nothing here to do. It's just
Right.
this undercurrent of a consistent feeling that I felt around the young adults in our community that I came back and I kind of brought that to how and why we built the type of programs and events that we did, and continue to do, excuse me. So it was me tapping into what I was feeling from my community and the young adults that I encountered in my community. As a leader, I definitely the introvert quality of me really makes me want to build a deep relationship with those who I'm asking to lead very significant
Mm.
portions of the organization. And how it's helped me is that those who are in those roles really know that I care and I understand them as a person, and the decisions that we're making not only together but in consideration of who they are and what they are capable of doing. So it's really helped me to understand capability, um, being able to put our team in the right position, and to lead with the heart and the mind.
Mm.
Now, how it's kind of, I believe, not helped me is, sometimes as a leader, right, you would love to do that, 15, 20, 30, 40, 100 times over, right? But when we're at this an interesting cusp of growth, and it does require you to move at a particular pace.
Mm.
And sometimes you don't necessarily have that opportunity to to build what I would think is absolutely necessary to build when I'm trying to connect with the divisions and those who are going to lead certain areas of the company. And so I sometimes struggle with the time to do that,
Huh.
because it's a time management thing at this point.
You said, I may want to go a little bit deeper, but the growth stage that we're in requires us to be moving a little bit faster. How deep can I go? So the question then becomes, is 80% good enough to go deep? Is 75% good enough? So how do you make some of those decisions now on how deep you go so that it still satisfies you? You still feel that you're in line with how you operate, but also for the betterment of this work that you're doing, the bigger work. So how are you making some of those decisions now?
Oh, wow.
Or are you still figuring that out? That's
I
fine.
am still figuring it out, let me tell you. But listen, at this point, it's a 60-40 balance, just because of our capacity and need to scale and maneuver the programs in such a way that it just is honestly about time management at this point, on top of knowing the work and the teams and the things that we're doing. It's a 60-40 for right now, and I'm still figuring out the rest. And I'm sure as the rest of my team gets a better, not even say more consistent, into this space where we have a clear kind of growth measured out and scale measured out, I think we'll start to kind of patternize that a bit more, and then be able to really roll in the groups and the teammates we're going to need, and be able to go to that level that I think is necessary to be able to put the right person on the team and move things forward.